Hello and good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I hope you're all keeping well. I'm Matt Jackson. I'm the chair of the IOSH consultancy group, and today we have Marissa Firkins, who will be joining us to deliver Is Consultancy Right for Me? So Marissa left the National Crime Agency after 22 years to set up her own consultancy. During this time, she had experienced what many other consultants have, including the highs and lows. During this session, Marissa will provide members with some hints and tips on how to build your brand and win new clients. The session is aimed at those who may be looking to move into consultancy, as well as those who may benefit from her experiences as an established consultant. So please welcome Marissa, who will be presenting today. There'll be an opportunity for questions and answers at the end, so please use the chat function. And thank you very much, Marissa, sorry.
All right. Good morning, everyone. So I'm Marisa Firkins, and I have a consultancy called Safety Forward, which I set up 7 years ago. As of last night, I can actually say that I am an award-winning director because I won an award for the Institute of Directors in their resilience and agility category. So I'm joining this, feeling quite happy today, and I feel like I've had a great achievement. The reason for me delivering this webinar is to really share my story with you. And hopefully, if you are thinking about jumping ship from your full-time health and safety job, or you are thinking about maybe growing your consultancy, I can give you sort of an honest insight into the highs, the lows, and just lay open for you. There will be questions at the end, so please feel free to ask any sort of burning questions you have, and I will endeavour to give a very honest answer to you. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen, my presentation with you. Okay, so is consultancy right for me? Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through my career journey. So as Matt said, I used to work for the National Crime Agency. I had 22 years in public sector, and the last 8 years was spent working in health and safety. Before that, I was an investigator, so a real sort of change of career. But I've always felt passionate about people, about looking after people, and about the benefits that people bring to an organisation or a business. So I've always been very passionate about looking after people, and I guess that's where my career journey started. So yeah, I worked in health and safety for around 7 years, and people often ask me, working for such a great organisation, why I decided to jump ship. The truth of the matter is that after 22 years, voluntary redundancy came out. I felt it was the right time to kind of take a risk and do something different. I knew I wanted to stay in health and safety, but just by a very chance conversation in a pub with a friend of mine, I actually said, I'm thinking about taking redundancy. And he said straight away, Maz, set up your own business. You'll be great at it. This is what you should really do. So I was actually really annoyed because I obviously worked in public sector. I only ever dealt with people inside public sector. I didn't have any sort of connections outside, in the outside world, any clients that were sort of saying, you know, can you come and work with us or anything like that. So literally, I finished on the 31st of May, 7 years ago. And the 1st of June, I started with not one single client. When I did start my business, I was actually going through the process of going from grad IOSH to chartered status. And one of the things that people often ask me is, does being chartered really matter if you're working as a self-employed consultant or you're setting up a consultancy? The straight answer to that is no, it's not necessary. You can, I know lots of very good tech IOSH people out there that have set up and are doing a fantastic job. The only benefit it does give you is that you can go onto the IOSH register, which if you're sort of quoting for work and things like that, you can actually refer people and say, I've been through an auditing process and I'm actually on the register, which gives a slight advantage, but to be honest, I wouldn't say that it really matters. Okay, so yeah, I started basically 7 years ago, and I started with a thought process that I was just going to do 2 days a week. And for the other 3 days, I was going to be out riding my horse and life was going to be really great. But actually, what I didn't realise that it would take 6 to 8 months to get momentum and try and get clients in. So I spent a lot of time just, kind of waiting for the phone to ring. So probably one of my first tips to you is if you're thinking about it, is start planning now. Start thinking ahead of who your clients are going to be and, what your brand's going to be and how you're going to get working. So yeah, figure out your why, understand, do you want to be free of, the boss? Do you want to take time off when you want? Do you want to be able to do things your way? I felt quite disillusioned when I left my job because what had happened was I ended up being confined to my desk. And that was not how I saw a health and safety role. I actually wanted to get out there and, be out with the teams in the National Crime Agency, working with them and helping them. But because of government cuts, I actually found myself tied to a desk, which is just not me. So yeah, figure out your why you want to do it. What I would say, something to be aware of is, it's a completely different skill set being a consultant. So if you're sat here watching this webinar and you think to yourself, actually, I'm really good at health and safety, it's not just about being a good technician. There are so many other things that you need to be able to do. And I'm going to talk through those during this webinar. Figure out if you always want to be self-employed and be sort of a lone entity, or whether you want to employ people and grow a team. And I think that's really important to get that in your head. And that's something I'd not quite figured out. I thought, I'll see what happens after 6 months, but I think it's really good to have a clear way ahead and understand where you want to take this. So once you've understood your why, let's talk through the benefits. So the good things about working for yourself or setting up a business is you can pick the work you want to do, which is a great and empowering thing to be able to have. I mean, we have work coming to Safety Forward. We're a small team of 7, and it feels really great when we have something come in and we think, actually, this is not for us, and we choose not to do it. Whereas when you're employed, you're almost dictated to of the work that you have to do. You can pick the people you want to work with. So we're really lucky as a business. We've got some fantastic clients who really make the job worthwhile. And, we like nothing more than getting fantastic feedback. So it's really good to be able to pick those people. So they won't just pick you, you will also pick them. And there's nothing more empowering than that. It's a really good feeling. So yeah, you can take time off when you want, you know, while you're just a separate entity. You can, you know, you can plan to maybe work 3 days a week, something like that. Or, you know, you can plan your holidays. You've got complete freedom over that. And you can upskill yourself in exactly what you want to do. So there's a particular area that you're interested in, you know, invest in yourself and get yourself skilled in that area. So it really is a good, you know, a good thing to be in control. Okay, so there is a myth that you're going to earn lots of money, and what I would say is just be realistic. You will need to understand and research what your day rate will be. And there will be people that will say to you, you can go out and earn £800 a day quite easily. And that's fine, as long, if you've got a very specialist skill set that could command that, then that's brilliant. But I think the reality is when you first set out on your own, you're looking at probably around 300 to a 350 day rate, realistically, particularly if you're going to freelance for other consultancies. That is about the going rate. Remember that every day cannot be a working day. So, you know, across a week, if you're running your own business, you'll probably have 3 days where you're actually out earning money and a couple of days where you're doing sort of administration, invoicing, chasing payments, things like that. So realistically, quite often only expect to be actually doing the work on 3 days a week. Maintaining a good work-life balance. So obviously I had this dream that I was going to be working 2 days a week and riding my horse the rest of the time, but that was a complete myth, because what actually happened was, in the end, I got really busy, and then I was having to kind of look ahead 6 weeks ahead and start thinking about getting working for 6 weeks ahead and planning that. So you have to bear in mind that, you know, some days can be really long, and, you know, if you've got a deadline or, you know, your IT breaks down, you're that person that's got to solve it. And I found very much in the early days, I'd come from a job where if my laptop crashed, I'd dial extension 4000, get the IT people, and they'd sort it all out. But then I became a one-man band and spent a day trying to sort out why my Outlook wasn't working. So I think you have to be very realistic and understand that sometimes things do go wrong, the wheel does come off, and, you know, you think you're always going to have a good work-life balance, but it's simply not the case. So just be careful of that. And maintaining control. You can't always maintain control. So, you know, work might go quiet and you might end up having to do work that you don't really want to do, or you might have you know, someone might have put a very tight deadline on you. So sometimes you will be dictated to by the client or by the workflow, simply because the work is not there, or you've had to take what's available. So just bear that in mind. Okay, so I've already mentioned this. So being a good consultant is not always about being a good technician. And what I mean by this is you have to wear so many hats. So you might know technically everything there is to know about work at height and think, you know, this is going to be my specialism. But what do you know about sort of credit checking the people who want to work with you, chasing money, marketing, networking, all those things you have to be good at. You will be customer service driven first. And remember, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So your personal brand is going to be really, really important to you. Whilst I'm on personal brand, after this session, have a look on Laura Orcott, works for the HSC Recruit. She's done some fantastic YouTube videos on personal brand. And they're really worth watching, particularly if you are thinking about going it alone and going into consultancy. Your personal brand is really important. So understanding what you stand for, and you know how you conduct yourself, and you know making sure you're attracting the right kind of client is very important. So if there's only one takeaway from this today, it's not just about being technically good at health and safety. It's about being that all-rounded individual and understanding the importance of customer service. Because if you haven't got that, then your clients and customers will leave you. Okay, so some of the personality traits that you need. Okay, so you need to be, unfortunately, you will need to be good at sales. And this is the one thing that I really struggled with at the start, because I worked in public sector. I didn't understand about getting working, how to get working. So sales was a real big one that I struggled with. I am at times very much an introvert, and I'm, you know, I think when I started out, I actually had to tackle this. This was my real demon, about walking into a room, into a networking event, and start working the room and talking to people that I've never spoken to before. So being good at sales is actually, it's a necessity. So I would actually think about, you know, upskilling yourself in this area and just getting an understanding of getting working. You need to be good at figures. You need to understand, you know, you need to have a forecasts and projections of your money that's going to be going out your bank account, and the money that's coming in as well. You always need to be understanding and keeping that cash flow going, understanding that you'll be paying corporation tax potentially, and you know, and normal HMRC tax on top of that, your VAT. You know, insurance, our insurance is high. We've got good insurance in place, and that's just something to be aware of as well. Don't sign up for a £250 insurance without understanding the small print. When I first set up, that's exactly what I did. I did buy an insurance for £250 to discover there was a £10,000 limit on each claim. If you give someone the wrong advice as a self-employed consultant, £10,000 will not get you anywhere. So please ensure you have adequate insurance in place, because potentially you may need it. You need good time management. So one thing that I learned about when I first set up, I treated, even if I didn't have work, I treated every day like a work day. So I'd be very strict on making sure that I was sat at my laptop at 9 o'clock, ready for the day, even if I had no work, because that was the time that I would then spend contacting people, you know, using LinkedIn and various other things to get the work in. I'd start at 9, I would finish at 5, and I was very rigid on that, because I think that if you get into that mode, you know, and not just let the day pitter away into nothing, you will make progress. So yeah, you need to be organised as well, because, you know, once you start having multiple clients, you need to be really good with your diary. log in how many hours you're spending with different clients as well. That's really important. And going out there and getting connected to people, either through LinkedIn. I used to go to sort of construction networking events, and get myself out to different shows and meeting people, just so I could, you know, sort of get my brand out there. But it's not just about connecting with people, it's also about maintaining those relationships. So, for example, if I, you know, I put things out on LinkedIn regularly, if I stop that for 3 or 4 months and just did nothing, I've lost those people. So you have to keep that momentum going, because if, you know, you've got potential clients out there, you need to stay in front of them and you need to make yourself heard and stay in their memories, because if you kind of shy away from it for 3 months, you've lost them. Okay, so people often ask me how I got the work in, having sort of worked in public sector and having no contacts. The biggest thing for me, the biggest driver of work coming in was a really good website. Now, there will be lots of people who argue with me about this and say they've grown a very successful business without even a website, and that's great. But for me, a well search engine optimized website has really paid off, because within 6 months of my website going live, I was at the top of Google rankings for sort of keywords of health and safety Staffordshire, health and safety Shropshire, health and safety West Midlands, and various other things. So that's what made the work start coming in, because I think when you start out, there will be people say, yeah, you know, I will hire you. You can do some work for me as a consultant. But quite often that doesn't come off. I had lots of people say to me at the start, yeah, we'll work with you. And I relied on that quite a bit. But you can't just put all your eggs in that basket. You have to start getting working from other places. So a website is, for me, has been an absolute must. And it's the one thing that has really helped grow the business. To be found on Google, to me, is very important. And to have a website that really sort of displays the work you do, and you know, what you're capable of, and the type of clients you work with, and you can put testimonials on there. And if you have any accreditations and stuff, it's your shop window, it's your opportunity to display to other people what your business is about. So yeah, and I used to do quite a lot of networking as well. So before COVID hit, so going out to events, speaking at events. I'm not a great public speaker at all, but there are some demons that I've had to deal with, and that is one of them. And yeah, just as I said before, stay connected with people. LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. And I've won one of my biggest contracts in the 7 years from a post that I put on LinkedIn. And a global business got in touch with me and said, we really want to work with Safety Forward. So LinkedIn is a fantastic tool. I can't recommend it enough. Okay, so there's some pitfalls that you do need to be aware of, and I'll just talk you through those. One of the hardest things to deal with, I think, is not getting paid. And it feels, even now, if we have issues around getting paid for the work we've done, it can feel very personal. What I'd say to you is, if you're not needing to get lots of work in and you can afford to be a bit picky, don't feel afraid to ask for money up front. Or quite often what we'll do when we work with a new client, we won't release any documents to them until they've paid the bill. as far as I'm concerned, I've got staff to pay, they've got mortgages, they've got families. It's important to keep that cash flow going. And it's absolutely crucial that you run credit checks on people that you don't know. Quite often we get paid late, and we have some clients that have really struggled during COVID. And it's great when you can have that conversation with them and work out a payment plan or something like that. But it is one of the tricky parts of having a consultancy and being self-employed. So just be really aware of that. In the early days as well, before I had a team, I quite often used freelancers, and we still do use freelancers now. But be careful if you're getting people in to do work on behalf of your freelance, because unfortunately some people can be quite unscrupulous, and you need contracts in place to ensure that they don't poach your clients. So if you are planning to get other people to work on behalf of your business as a freelancer, make sure you have a very watertight contract in place, because it has happened to me. It did happen in the early days, and it just causes no end of problems. So having that contract early days is really important. I think as I said before, not being consistent with your contacts, and you constantly need to build relationships and keep those relationships going. You can't just hide behind a website or an email. One of the biggest factors I had to overcome when I left National Crime Agency is that actually people like to be spoken to on the phone. So I do always say to the team, pick the phone up, don't send long emails. It's those calls that build relationships. It's really important. It can be long hours, and that's one of the big pitfalls. There are many times where I've worked 7 days a week till late at night because the work's come in and there's deadlines, and we've just had to go with the flow. So expect at times that there will be long hours. And that has an impact on family life. So I have a really understanding family. They understand the passion for what I do. When I've had to work on a Saturday afternoon when I've wanted to be in the park or doing other stuff, they've been really understanding and really supportive. But if you don't have that supportive family there, and they're going to put pressure on you, then you're going to find it quite difficult at times. You have to understand you won't always have that work-life balance. It will be very lent towards work. And the book stops with you at the end of the day. So, I had a boss in the National Crime Agency. She was the head of health and safety. And if anything went wrong, it went up to her. But the book stops with you, everything stops with you. So you have to understand that you need to take full responsibility for the work you do and how you do it, because it can't just be batted off to someone else. It remains with you. Okay, so I've discussed the pitfalls, the honest discussion of the things that you need to know about. The rewards, there are lots of rewards. So, hopefully I haven't put you off, but I've given you an honest account of being a consultant. What I would say is one of the best things about being a consultant is other consultancy businesses in my area. We all support each other. And through COVID, I organised a consultancy group where other sort of local health and safety consultancies, they came on the call, and we just discussed how COVID was going and impacted on us. I never see another health and safety consultancy as the enemy or a threat. They're simply not. And you would be very surprised how much support you will get by getting in touch with other local businesses. we all have our own specialisms and we all have our own way of doing things. We'll all have our own pricing structure. It's a very big pool out there, and there's enough room for everyone. So I think it's, you know, people might think it's strange to think that you can contact other consultancies in the area. Absolutely do, because, you know, we do help each other. And, you know, some of those people in my area have been my biggest inspiration and give me ideas how to improve my business. And it's great to grow your brand. So one of the greatest rewards is to grow a really good brand and to think it's something that I've created and the team have created as well, because, you know, we are a team and we do all work together. And someone said to me a few weeks ago that Safety Forward was the one consultancy they admired, and they thought it was a great business. And that was another consultant, and that really makes me feel happy that someone has that viewpoint on the business. I treat every day like a learning day. Every day I learn something different. I learn a lot from working with clients, going out to different sites. I learn a lot from my team as well, you know, because they all have their sort of ways of doing things as, you know, specialisms. And at times they'll challenge me on something, and it's brilliant because it shows they're bringing something else to the table, and it's nice to look around and think, yeah, we've got a great team here. I really enjoy bringing on inexperienced staff. So I had a lady join the business called Jasmine about 6 months ago. She wrote to me 2 years ago. She sent me an email saying, I've finished university, I've done a event management degree, but I really, really want to get into health and safety. Can I spend 2 weeks with you? So she came along and spent some time with us, and 2 years later we were able to offer her a job, and we're bringing her on through the IOSH route of getting her into be a health and safety consultant. So it's really great that you can sort of, you know, bring new staff in, you know, inexperienced, and then sort of bring them on and take them through the ranks. People who I bump into that I used to work with will often say to me, is there anything that you would change? You know, are there any days where you've thought, I made the wrong mistake? I think even on my darkest days when things have gone really wrong, I've never thought I've made a mistake. It's, you know, it's been the best thing I could have ever done, and I feel really grateful and humble that, you know, I've got a really great team, and, you know, we've grown this business into something really good. So just some tips on further research, really. There's a really good book which Start With Why, which helps you understand your reasons for doing what you're doing. Business Model Generation is one of the first books that was recommended to me, and it's very good to help you understand sort of who your clients are going to be. It puts everything down on paper, so how you're going to get the work in, who you're going to work with to make those things happen. It kind of dissects into how you're going to set your business up. And it's a really useful tool. It's a really good book that I go back to time and time again. The other one is E-Myth Revisited. Michael Gerber is an American guy, but this book I must have read 6 or 7 times now. It's really good. And when I've talked about being a good technician, but I need to be a good business person, that's where that phrase comes from, about it's not just about being a good technician, and it talks you through the skill set of running a business. And I think it's a fantastic book. It's also, I've got the audio book as well that I still listen to in my car when I'm traveling to clients and stuff. One of my favourite podcasts is The Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. And he has people on that show that talk about sort of the highs and lows of running a business. But my favourite one is by Rio Ferdinand, and he talks a lot about when he played for Manchester United and about the management style that was there and how that interpreted into business world. So he talks about Alex Ferguson and about his things like non-negotiables, things he defined that excuse me, things he defined that Man United stood for, that you can convert into a business sense. So, you know, what does your business stand for and what are your non-negotiables? So those are some really good tips for reading. Okay, so just some top tips for you. If you're thinking about going into consultancy, plan your time well, start planning now. If you want to do it in 12 months' time, now is the time to start thinking about it. Don't do what I did and just wait for day one when you wake up one morning and think, right, I'm self-employed world. And you need to start planning now. It's really useful to have a management system in place. So when you start working with clients, you've got all your documents and forms there as well. Be careful of copyright. Don't copy someone else's management system, because it's happened to me where one of our forms has turned up somewhere else that another consultant has started using, and it's a breach of copyright. So you have to be really careful. So just don't think you can just take something from somewhere else. I subscribe to Barber EHS, and there's lots of management system tools on there. It is quite expensive if you're starting out. I think it's a couple of £1,000 a year, so it is quite a big cost. But I know our clients really enjoy reading the weekly legal updates, and there's some really good toolbox talks in there. And during COVID, the document supply were very good. Yeah, so understand your brand, get in place what your mission and value is. So do some work around that, about mission and value. You know, what do you want to achieve? What value do you want to bring to your clients? You know, what will be your mission as a team? You know, how are you going to help people? So brand, mission, and values, have those written down. It's really important. Investing in a good website, so I've talked about that. Understand who your ideal client is going to be, so write those down, get some notes on that, and then design your marketing or your sales around that, around what your perfect client is. Contact your local growth hub. So if you're watching within the UK, you will have a local growth hub, and they are a fantastic resource. Quite often there's grants available to get you set up in business. There is a lot of form filling, so you know, it can take a day sometimes to get, you know, a grant application filled out. But definitely contact your local growth hub within the UK. Because they are really, really good. Don't spend too much money at the start on things like Google AdWords, and try and do it yourself, because spending can get out of control. You don't need to spend a lot of money on things like Google Ads, or you know, people will convince you to put an advert in a magazine and things like that. But at first, keep the money tight and don't spend too much. I've made lots of mistakes with advertising, particularly. That's been very costly and yielded no results. So just bear that in mind. I've got here, look after your own mental health and well-being. I think that's really important, particularly that the book stops with you. So it can feel quite stressful sometimes when things go wrong and you've got no one there, there's not a team to help you. So, you know, do try and take time out, do try and detract from, you know, sort of being absorbed into the business. You know, if you fall, if your mental health starts to suffer and you start to fade, then, you know, that's not good. So you really need to think about your mental health and well-being. And again, I've already said, my last top tip is LinkedIn. It's such a fantastic tool to get yourself out there. So, you know, you'll see people, they run LinkedIn courses, and it's a fantastic tool. Okay, so that's it from me. So, Matt, I'll hand back to you, and we'll have some questions.
Thanks very much, Marissa. Some really good advice there, and I like the book recommendation to start with. Why I think, you know, not just consultants, I think all safety practitioners would benefit from reading that book. I found it particularly interesting. So some good suggestions there. We've got a couple of questions that have come in, so we'll start off with the first one. So someone said, can you say a little bit more about freelancing for other consultancies?
Okay, so yeah, so when we use freelancers, and quite often what happens is we will have a team of we have a bank of freelancers. We've got about 6 people who work with Safety Forward. If you're thinking about freelancing, I would actually contact a consultancy that you'd quite like to work with. Send them your CV and see if you can have a call with them just to go through, you know, what exactly are your specialisms. Freelancers are really good for us, but so we've built up quite a good relationship with a few key freelancers who we trust and are there as the Safety Forward brand. So if you send them out to see a client, they're working as Safety Forward. They won't be working as themselves, if that makes sense. But it's, you know, it's really important as well that as a freelancer, you still have insurance. You still do need it.
Okay. Another one says, has asked, did you have financial commitments like a mortgage, etc., when you set up your consultancy?
Yeah, so I did have financial commitments, yes. What I would say, I'll be quite honest about this, is that when I took 22, I left a job after 22 years for redundancy. So I did have money to fall back on. I'll be very honest, if you should ideally have around 6 months worth of money in the bank to get you through the times when there might not be any work. Ideally, 3 months is an absolute minimum. So say if you earn £2,500 a month, I would understand what your commitments are and look to have at least probably 3 months worth of wages in the bank saved up, or of what you can live on, to get you through the times when you're not working, because that does happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, some good advice there, Marissa. One question, what makes a good HSE consultant? I think you've answered that throughout your presentation, but a sub-question to that is particularly, how can insurance be of help in developing countries like Africa and beyond, so maybe more of an international presence, so dealing with international clients?
Yeah, so I've worked a little bit internationally through my job with the National Crime Agency, but yeah, if you're I've not got a lot of experience, if I'm honest, as working as a consultant abroad. It just, we work with global businesses who do have sites abroad, but for us, I think you'd need to kind of put yourself out there as an international specialist and know what the laws are out in those countries before you take that work on. I don't know whether that answers the question, Matt.
No, I think you're right, Marissa. I mean, I worked in the Middle East for 10 years, so I think it's very much about understanding the local requirements and what insurance insurances need to be in place when providing consultancy work in those particular countries. So I think it's quite specific to that particular country or region. So no, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. Someone's asked, do freelancers come under IR35?
Yes, they do. It's only really a problem, I believe. So my accountant sorts all this out. So going back to having different people who specialise in different things. So IR35, you have to be very careful if you just freelance for one person. So my advice is, so you don't fall under IR35, is just making sure you're getting working for yourself, but you're also, you can freelance at the same time, and that doesn't come under IR35. So it's just, from the day one, I set up as a limited company, and I worked with several different people. However, just be aware, the waters do get muddy when you start just to work for one person, because technically now you're classed as then as an employee, and you'll fall under IR35. But have yourself, get a good accountant who will advise you, and that is, my accountant was brilliant in the early days. He pointed me in the right direction.
Somebody else has asked the question, how do you decide between who becomes an employee or as a freelancer, which I think you've probably just answered there with the accountant piece and that bits and bobs. So again, going back to the setup pieces, I think you've already said is invest in those skills that are beyond your skill set, and making sure that there's enough money available to employ a decent accountant. Last question we've got, how often do you review and cull clients who are not beneficial to be partnered with?
So how often is that? How often do I call clients, as in like get rid of them? I love this question. So the first time I did this was about, so we go 7 years, and I did it around for 3 or 4 years ago. I worked with quite a very big brand, a restaurant and clothing brand, and they got various other businesses, very, very high end, and they just weren't aligned with our values. And sometimes when they spoke to the team, they were quite disrespectful. And we just decided as a team that actually we just didn't like working with them. I think it stressed people out. The relationship, that it wasn't a valuable relationship. We wasn't gaining much from them, and because of how it went, they wasn't gaining much from us. So I actually turned around and said, we cannot work with you anymore, and gave them the reasons why. You will find this quite often, and it's, you will have clients who you will advise and they don't take your advice, and they'll carry on working in dangerous conditions. And I think when you get to this sort of scenario where they're not on that path of improvement, you have to make sure you stay true to your values, and you will have to get rid of them. But it's quite empowering. It's a good place to be able to get rid of people, and we have done it quite often since then. So yeah.
And I think probably the question for me, and which has not come through the Q&A, is particularly with our focus on future leaders now. As we are an aging profession, and myself there included. What advice would you give to somebody who is looking to take up a second career in IOSH and possibly consultancy?
So they're looking, sorry, Matt, they're looking to take up a second career.
Yeah, sorry, first career.
Oh, first career.
Yeah, so they're just starting out and thinking about going into consultancy. What advice would you give them?
I would get in touch with various consultancies. I mean, Jasmine, who worked for me, she contacted me cold and said, I really want to understand what a consultant does. IOSH, when some of the events are going back to face now, so get to those events, because if I go to the sort of IOSH Staffordshire branch meeting when we used to have them, I used to actually go and speak to a lot of the young people there. I really find them interesting to talk to them about their career journey. So I think networking is a really key part to get yourself out there. You won't just get an IOSH certificate or NCRQ and expect to get a job off the back of it. I think there's a lot of work, especially around networking, using LinkedIn to get in touch with people and maybe do some volunteering.
Okay, excellent. Well, Marissa, that's us coming up to the end of the session. I'd like to thank you on behalf of the IOSH Consultancy Group for presenting today. I thought it was a really valuable presentation of some really great information there. So the session is recorded. It will be available on the IOSH website once it's been edited or put up onto the website. So for those who have missed it, they will be able to go back to that. And those who've attended today and they want to rerun through the presentation that Marissa has shared with us today, then they'll be able to do so through there. Marissa, thank you very much for your time, and congratulations on your award last night. And hopefully we'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you.